Thank you for joining us on the RP Experience. I'm your host, Andrew Regenhard, and today we have Dali Mihajlovic. Close enough, probably. It's a mouthful for me. A preferred partner as well as a top producing agent with Real Producers. So welcome.
Thanks, Andrew. That is probably as close as I get. So.
Well, I did practice before. I can't take all the credit. It wasn't a first time, but hey, Mihajlovic, he said. He helped me through it. So a little bit about Dali here. Dali was born and raised in Serbia and moved to the U.S. at age 17, landing here in Florida. Dali went to play competitive professional tennis, graduated from Indiana State University with a degree in finance. He moved to Chicago, where he developed a reputation as a tennis coach. Dali spent the next 18 years in Chicago before returning to Florida. During this time, he began investing in real estate, really igniting his passion for the work that would eventually become his career. Dali started his career in real estate in 2020. He also launched a property management group alongside his real estate sales work. So today, Dali manages over 180 properties, and Dali and his family moved to Southwest Florida in 2018 for the lifestyle, and they're enjoying their life here in Naples. So, Dali, I think you're the only one on the podcast so far from Serbia, right? And you grew up there, and for 17 years you lived there. So tell us a little bit about those 17 years.
That was, seems like ages ago.
Right.
And we're not going to disclose my age, but it was, I grew up in Serbia, meaning I was born in Serbia and grew up playing tennis, going to school. And then there was an opportunity that arose at the time to move to United States for the tennis game, to improve my tennis game and to get my schooling at the same time. So decided with the family to take a leap of faith and kind of make them move, and ended up moving here in 1997.
No, that was Florida, but where was that in Florida?
I was on the East Coast.
East Coast.
Yeah, I was in Deerfield Beach.
Okay, gotcha.
So, Florida is actually known, just in the world in general, it's just known as the tennis center of the world, pretty much. Everyone.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, there's a lot of tennis academies, and on the East Coast, even here on the West Coast, but primarily on the East Coast.
Huh.
So
I would have guessed golf, but not tennis. But it makes sense. You got to be outside to play tennis, and we're always sunny here, huh?
Yep, that's the key.
I wouldn't guess ice skating or hockey here,
Yeah.
but there actually is a lot of indoor rinks, which I was surprised too. So I guess I'm just batting 0 for 100 right now. So you came here, but then you actually moved up north, right? What pushed you to Chicago?
So what happened, actually, my dad moved here to United States first, and he landed in Chicago. He had some friends, and that was just like kind of helping friends out, and he ended up kind of making that first move for all of us. So when I moved with the rest of the family, they stayed in Chicago, and I came to Florida by myself. So I finished my senior year in high school in Florida, and I was in academy as well. So during that process, I got recruited to go to, I started actually at University of Kentucky my freshman year, and then from University of Kentucky, I transferred to Indiana State University. So both schools were, at the time, top 20 in the nation, so very good competitive tennis programs. And at the same time, I ended up getting a degree in finance. So once I finished with my degree, I was in 2003. At that time, I was kind of debating which direction I was going to go as far as, do I dive into finance? Do I get master's? And I did get an invitation from a tennis coach in Chicago that I met back in the day to start working for him. And that was an easy decision, right? I played tennis my whole life. I held the racket since I was 9 years old. So I was like, okay, well, why not? While I'm figuring out what my next step is.
Right.
So
lean on to something that you're good at and that you're comfortable with.
Yeah, exactly. And again, at the age of, at that time, 22, how easy can it be to go play tennis?
Right.
Something that I love, something that I'm good at it, and get paid for it.
Right.
Like, okay, win-win, right?
For sure.
So that's how I ended up in Chicago. So I moved back to Chicago in 2003. And I was, again, part of the easy decision was because my family was already there. So I was just, okay, I'll be close to the family and I'll get a full-time job and kind of go from there, see which how this all develops. Started at the private club in Chicago in 2003. In about 2 years, I became a head pro, and I stayed in Chicago for 18 years. I would say a little too long. Now knowing what Florida offers, yeah, a little too long.
Probably, yeah, a little too cold, a little too long.
Exactly.
Yep, I hear you. And you really never dabbled too much into the finance then, huh?
I did not. Weird part about it is I did get master's degree in the meantime as well.
Right.
Just thinking like, okay, it's gonna help me out. I mean, it's always good to have the educational side of it. But in 2003, I mean, that was after 9/11. I mean, the economy, it was the way it was, and it was hard to get a job just as at that time. So that's kind of what ended up going towards the tennis career and thinking that eventually I will get into the finance. It just never happened. I mean, being in the tennis career just kind of progressed over time, and my position in the club got higher and higher, and it was just hard to kind of walk away from it. And that coaching environment and the relationships that I formed with the members, the coworkers and stuff. So that kind of was part of it as well. So I ended up staying in tennis.
That's awesome. All right. So tennis was huge, right? Finance is obviously a huge factor of why you're successful today, but you never really used it, right? I mean, that was something you learned about. So where does real estate come into play?
Well, let's see, when we were in Chicago, we were vacationing a lot in Florida. And at one point we made the decision to purchase a property in Florida. So we have our own property. We can go back to it. So I started by purchasing a property. I used it also as an investment property as well when we were not here renting it out. So, just that type of management, real estate, transactions back and forth, I truly enjoyed it. And even to the point that I decided when I was in Illinois to, sell by owner, so it was just more like, let's get a feel for it. And as I said, throughout the whole process, and I trusted obviously because it was my own property to, use that as a tryout period, I guess.
Yeah, right.
Not
test dummy.
That, exactly. So, and it worked out well. I mean, it's not, it's something that I kind of fell for. Okay, this is something that I could be doing, and I definitely something that I will be exploring. So that's kind of how slowly I got a little taste of real estate at the time.
So you probably thought it was mostly going to be for yourself, right? When was that tipping point when you're like, ooh, I might do this a lot more, and I might actually take this real estate thing as a realtor a lot more serious?
I'll share one fact that you might not even know about this, that, we moved to Florida. When I say we, like my family moved to Florida in 2018. I kept my job in Chicago until 2021. So I travel back to Chicago every week. I think I possibly could be the only tennis coach in the world who travel to do his job every single week.
So back and forth on the plane.
Back and forth, exactly. Like, Monday through Friday kind of type of deal in Chicago and then here in Florida. So COVID happened, right? 2020,
right.
No travel for about 3 months. I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to do something, right? I can't just not do anything about it. So that's the time when I decided, okay, what can I do in this short period of time that I'm kind of off? And I decided to get my license. I decided at that point, and you're absolutely right. I mean, the idea was, let's get a license so that I can do more transaction for myself.
Right.
In a sense of selling, buying, because I did see a big opportunity in the real estate market at the time. And ended up getting a license in 2020. It was in May of 2020. And by that summer, few people have heard about it and have friends and family, right? That's how you start in real estate business. And, asking for kind of help and if I can help them out. So I would say by the end of 2020, I already had few transactions and I already had few investors who reached out regarding the property management aspect of it. So at that time, I was like, okay, I feel like this could be a career.
Right.
I feel like, I can.
It's not just a hobby or just a personal thing or just about. It's like, all right, this is serious now.
This is now it's the time to start thinking about it, right? And it wasn't an easy decision because it was hard to, in a way, of letting go of something that I've been part of for about 18 years. So it took me a whole 2021. I mean, I still traveled back and forth, but less. I spent less time in Chicago, more time in Florida, developing my business. But the whole year of 2021 was probably the hardest, in my life, juggling both careers.
For sure.
And starting one and letting go of the other one. And then end of 2021 is when I said, okay, enough is enough. I can't do this travel anymore.
Yeah.
And that's how, so 2022 was my first full year as a realtor.
Amazing. And just so you guys know, like 2022, I mean, we're just into 2023, right? So it's impressive that in that short amount of time, you rose to the top in a sense, in so many ways. Where did you close out 2022 from a volume standpoint?
It was 49 transactions and about close to $23 million.
I went pause after that for a reason, you guys. That's when he fully got into real estate. So that's impressive. I mean, a lot of people, they wait 6 months, 8 months, a year till their first check, right? So to do 20+ million and close to 50 transactions, really impressive. So huge kudos on that. And then alongside, start a property management company. So, which we'll get into in a second, but do you feel that the competitiveness of the sport of tennis has a factor in how you buy and sell and help your clients do real estate?
Big time. Yeah, absolutely. Well, the way I see it, every client, it's a challenge. Just like, when I step on the tennis court, every opponent would be a challenge. And it's not just opponent, there are other factors as well that would play a role, such as the weather, the court, I mean, there, you name it. So when I step in with a client, I'm not just working with the client. There's other aspects of it, trying to find the perfect match. And then even when you find the perfect match that fits for them, submitting an offer, getting offer accepted, working with the listing agent. I mean, there's so many other factors that play a role. So I think the competitiveness that I had of being successful and making sure to get it done, kind of took into a real estate where, I see it as a individually different challenge, but with the same goal at the end, making sure that the client is happy.
Yeah. And each one's so unique.
Absolutely.
You know, and that's what's so challenging but exciting for a lot of you guys top agents. It is repetitive. It's all deals, but they're all different deals, right? Yeah.
And then the other part, I mean, that I think big part of it as well is, building those connections and building relationships.
Right.
And I think that's where the coaching job, obviously the first part of my career is playing and competing, where the other part was, working in Chicago and in a way selling a product at the time, selling myself as a coach, which is now just a different type of industry. But
you're still selling yourself, though.
That's what I mean. Yeah, exactly. But building the relationships with the clientele that they can refer you down the road. And I think that is probably one of the biggest part when it comes to the real estate business.
And it's, again, dealing with the people, right? So 2022, 20+ million, 50 transaction. But then on top of that, you decided to start a business. And it wasn't just selling popsicles or, here and there, pressure washing. This is a full-blown business and very successful business now at this point. So you started a property management company and you have over 180 doors that you guys manage, correct?
Yeah.
What was the big push on why you created that?
The property management kind of went hand to hand with the real estate. Once I purchased a few properties on my own, and people found out that I'm a realtor, they started calling and asking for advices. This was end of 2020, beginning of 2021. And so they kind of follow my lead as far as where to invest their money. And once they invested, they're like, okay, well, who's going to manage it now? I'm like, well, I guess I can. I will. I mean, I'll do it.
Everything's got a price.
Exactly. Why not? Right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I started. And it started pretty much helping few people or friends in a family, and next thing you know, by word of mouth, we go from 5 to 10 to 20 to 30. Then I'm like, okay, well, my Excel spreadsheets don't work anymore. I mean, like, it's just so hard to keep up with all of this.
Yeah.
So, and that was just like, we talked about, what was the kind of point where you make the decision of like, okay, what am I doing next?
Right.
And at that point, I made the decision to open up a property management company. I had talked to my broker, and we kind of agreed on working things out in a way that I would open up a property management company, and in addition to being a realtor. And right now, at this point, we have 180 properties that we manage.
Crazy.
I do have 4 full employees. So it is, a busy one.
Yeah. Busy business.
Especially, I mean, right now, we're talking about the end of March, season type of deal in Florida. So it gets me busy.
Yeah,
Keeps me
for sure.
busy.
And as a partner with Real Producers. So we appreciate that. So the big part about this business, though, is obviously service, right? And which goes hand in hand. And I think that's something that will cross over between the two. But how do you distinguish how do you distinguish between the two when you're like, okay, I got to be a realtor, or like I'm, a property management business owner? How do you distinguish between the two?
It was very difficult in the beginning because, I mean, a sale of a property or a rental of a property, I mean, we're talking about, 2 different, obviously, paychecks, right? So, but when I was doing all by myself, it was very hard to manage and pick and kind of choose. So it was at that point when I decided, okay, I need help. So getting help from my employees in the property management aspect of it, so they can do day-to-day stuff, so I don't have to be involved. Then I can focus on the real estate side. So it's just it's a time management, right? Like everything else in life, it's just being able to manage it correctly and set the time each day for each business, and expanding the business and putting time into it so that you can get all that back.
For sure. So there is property management companies locally, right? What does all-in property management do differently or operate differently compared to the other ones? Because in such a short amount of time, you've grown drastically, right? You must be doing something correctly, and there must be a word of mouth that's spreading about good news for you guys. So what is it?
What is the name of the company?
All In.
All In, exactly. So that's the idea behind the name was, I mean, we are putting everything into it, meaning we are taking all in effort, and we're taking all the day-to-day stuff from the owners. So therefore, they can enjoy being owners. They can have the benefits. They can have a good return on investment. While we are handling all the stuff from start to the end. So from the marketing aspect of it to securing a tenant, then going into the next aspect of managing the tenant as well. And by securing a tenant, we live in Florida, right? I mean, January, February, March, it's a high season. Everyone wants to be in Florida, but making sure you secure a quality tenant. That's where we kind of stand behind, is that securing quality tenants and tenants that will come back, tenants that are returning clients that will treat owners' property as their own, as their second home. And to manage, as I mentioned, is managing the aspect of it, and then handling all the financials, any issues that tenants do have, and having everything in one spot. With our website, where owners can go in, log into their owner portal, and just see everything. So there's no like hidden agendas or so. It's and communicating with the owners, communicating with tenants, providing that experience, that one of a kind, like that. And I think that's what kind of puts us apart from others. And in four, actually, including myself, 5 full-time employees.
Yeah.
I think that any inquiries that we get from the rental aspect of it or from the owners, I mean, we're not talking about 24 hours. I mean, we're talking about don't quote me on this, but like 24 minutes.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
So
Yeah, you try to be there as soon as possible. Where is the limitation then? Like at what point, in a sense, do you have to kind of turn that over to someone else, you know?
you mean as far as the property management?
Yeah, like, there's absurd requests and different things
Mhm.
like that. Obviously, you're managing the property. At what line do you kind of stop that, or like what's the limitations of all in property management?
There are none. I
None.
mean, like, exactly. So and don't get me wrong, it's not like we just take any type of property. I mean, we do go through evaluation process when we meet with when we discuss opportunity with the owners, meet with them, we do inspect the property, we go check it out. So it is, I mean, we are very selective as who we take as our clients. And then, once they become our clients, as I mentioned, with different employees, they cover different aspects of it. So therefore, the workload is spread out. So therefore, that each employee knows what they're covering, or owner knows who to go to.
Makes sense. So many people came down here during COVID, right? There's so many people that wanted to escape, and then they never left too, right? But people continuously and always have and will continue to want to come to Florida. What is your prediction on the next coming years, from a statistic standpoint, on returning people or season?
I mean, I believe Florida will always be a seasonal place. And that being said, meaning like we'll always drive like, January, February, March. I know people like to say 6 months in season, 6 months off season. I mean, technically, if you look, and I can only obviously speak based on the data that I can provide. I mean, there's 3 months of high season. I mean, January, February, March. We do have months around those high season, which I like to call like a mid season. And then you have low season, May through October. So, I mean, different things happen. I mean, we can't predict, right? I mean, look at COVID. I mean, COVID hit and Florida becomes center of the world. I mean, like the amount of business we had, from the real estate standpoint, but also in the property management aspect of it. I mean, just tons of people wanted to be in Florida, and why not, right? I mean, and but then we had, Ian last year. They hit in October, so that kind of, business picked up big time come, October, November, December. So I think we'll always have the January, February, March aspect of it, meaning in again from influx of people in Florida, and then other months it will just all depend of how things play out, just not just in the United States, but also think rest of the world.
Yeah.
So, and it's hard to predict. I mean, with the market the way it is these days, and the interest rates, and we can definitely go back and forth, and on both aspects of it, and neither one would be wrong.
Right.
It's just opinions that it's hard to predict. But regardless how all that works out, or I mean, there's enough data to see that based on the market, all it is just a new challenge,
right?
And how you handle it and how you kind of go about it. So real estate will always be booming, especially in Florida. I mean, as you can see, builders are building, things are selling, so it's always going to the real estate industry will always be the good one.
And especially with such voluntary current events, different things like that, right? There's always speculation about ups, downs, or whatever, right? We can talk about that. But also from a tech standpoint, right? This new AI, amazing, right? And they're always like, oh, AI, it's the greatest thing. It's going to replace X, Y, and Z. It's not going to replace land. It's not going to replace the home. Can it add some cool tech features to your home? Of course. But it's not going to replace the real estate industry. Nothing really can. And you're not creating more land, right? It's what we have. And so it's not going anywhere. So.
And you're right. I mean, all these new cool things that are coming up, right? And the way I look at it is it's just going to, if you embrace it, it's just going to make your job easier.
For sure.
And, it's that aspect of it, not fighting it.
Yep.
Just understand it's now a new part of your life.
Yep.
And then being able to adapt. But as you said, I mean, how will the future, what will the future be? I mean, the people are talking about, cars driving on their own, and all that. I don't know how a property will be able to, sell on its own or how the property will be able to rent on its own. So, as I said, these challenges, they're coming up, just embrace them, make a part of your new, routine or new business plan or so, and kind of go along with it.
You have to adapt, right? I mean, look at internet, look at cell phones, all the past stuff. You have to adapt. Otherwise, you'll be left in the dark.
Do you remember days without cell phones?
No.
I mean,
but also I'm a little younger. So, Dali, unfortunately, we are out of time, but holy crap, it's been an absolute pleasure. Huge congratulations on all your success in such a short amount of time. And obviously, we appreciate you here as a partner within Real Producers as well. So, Dali, thanks so much for joining us on the podcast.
Thanks, Andrew. I appreciate inviting me over, and I truly enjoyed it as well.
Well, good. As always, RP Experience is extremely thrilled to have you on here. We're here at Venture X in the podcast studio. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned to the next episode. See ya.